This meeting is being recorded.
This meeting is being recorded. Nam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhastai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pashtatara Sataline Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. All right, so just before we begin, can anyone give a hazard of a guess or have some remembrance of what we left off or where we left off last week? Specifically, what we might have been discussing. Must admit, I was reminded myself only by looking back in the book once I began to read, and I remembered. Yes, very interesting.
Wasn't it? We did smaran. So what comes after smaran?
Yeah, that was it. That's called Shravan-das. We finished describing about Shravan-das, and then began speaking about Varana-das, the stage of acceptance, you know. So what I'll do again, I'm going to share my screen again and share that whiteboard I have so we can have a clear understanding where we are. It's the same. Let me just know how to do this. Okay.
Aren't we in the Bhava Dasa, isn't it? The next one, number 4.
No, we're on number 2, Varana-das. Yeah, we're just on Varana-das. Now,
Okay, sorry.
I do this 1 second. Okay. Okay. Oh, no. Got it. Okay. Yeah, screen. Excuse me for this. I'm just getting used to this new method of trying to explain things or okay. We won't stay on this whiteboard for the whole session. Just give an idea. Okay, remember this from last week? We had a few lines that were on it, but I cleared them up. So we're on page, before I begin, we are on page 521. Yeah.
Sorry, 500 what?
521. That's what page we are on.
Okay.
I just want to go back and give, we're describing these stages here. Oh, no. We're describing these stages here, 1 to 5. Yeah, we went over this last week. Today we're going to be continuing with this one, Varana-das. Yeah. So I just want to, here's a little synopsis of what is Shravan-das. If you go to the bottom here, so it's a stage of hearing. Hearing is the foundation of Krishna consciousness. By somehow hearing about Krishna, a person, excuse my writing, acquires piety. Okay. And that eventually leads to faith. That piety leads to faith, specifically faith in the devotees of the Lord, faith in the hearing, in the process of hearing about Krishna. Yeah. And that faith leads to enthusiasm. Yeah, a person develops enthusiasm. Well, this is the stage of Shravan-das, actually. That a person is enthusiastic to actually hear about Krishna. This is Shravan-das. This is the stage of Shravan-das. One is actually enthusiastic to hear about Krishna from advanced devotees. And then that leads from that enthusiastic hearing, it leads to one embraces the process of Krishna consciousness. One is willing to act on what one has heard. Again, this is just a synopsis of its first stage we've been discussing, Shravan-das, okay? One is heard, yeah? So that's the basics of Shravan-das. And then do you remember, we went over this in the beginning last week, but then we had two categories of Shravan-das, which is here. It is these two categories here. Say systematic plan and randomly. And then another one is one where one is not hearing at all. So that's kind of be put into a category. All right. And so, and can anyone tell me what Siddha Pranali is? This was in relationship to Varanadas.
Isn't it your Swarup?
Yeah, that's it. You're in the right. You're going in the right in the right direction. And we brought up a controversy which we described before in our readings on Sudha Bhakti Chintamani. And that basically is, and you can see, and let's just go to page 521 now. So Varanadas is the stage of acceptance. Let's do as I gave I just gave a little here. Varanadas is where devotees embrace a specific spiritual identity, and which he or she serves and follows in eternal associate of the Lord. That's the Varanadas. That's why it's called the stage of acceptance, where you're desiring a specific service. That's called Varanadas. And then Maharaj brought up, he went a little bit of a sidetrack to speaking about this Siddha Pranali, where one gets assigned a specific spiritual identity and the different attributes of a gopi, the relationship, age, name, form, group, etc. Then Maharaj went on to explain that it's not viable today. Bhaktisiddhanta chose, he didn't use this method of being. Maharaj, he describes this here. The practice of bestowing 11 bhavas, also known as Siddha Pranali, requires that the spiritual master actually realizes his own eternal form, and that the disciple is suitably pure in spontaneous devotion. However, in the worldwide preaching mission, all spiritual masters will not be siddhas. Indeed, because ultimate adhikaris are rare, they will be the exception and not the rule. And yet Srila Prabhupada will say that to bring Krishna consciousness to the world, we require many millions of gurus. That means that both Kanishta and Madhyama adhikaris may take up the service of Guru, but they cannot offer the 11 bhavas. To do so would be nothing more than unproductive imitation. Then he goes on to describe more. Additionally, disciples generally lack the requisite qualification to receive such a meditation, and even if qualified gurus and disciples did exist, were those gurus to give the 11 bhavas to some and not to others, the preaching effort will be soiled with envy, competition, cheating, and endless ills. Can you just imagine that situation where a group of you, like 100 disciples, 300 disciples, and one may get this meditation from the guru? What that would cause, I think. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada definitely fully empowered by the Lord in order to see through its non-practicality in this present age of Kali. So now we're going to hear the method of spiritual attainment that comes through also what Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave on Bhaktisiddhanta, which is the process of Sankirtan, chanting the holy names of the Lord. Okay, so we hear about that. And okay, let's have some reading. I'm going to stop sharing if I can. Stop share. That's it.
You know the sentence.
Yeah. Any questions on that? Little quick on that synopsis.
No, the paragraph you just little bit, you were just saying about in this day and age, it's not possible to do.
Well, yeah, yes,
But-
yeah.
So does it mean that disciples are not, gurus are not at that standard, or and the disciples are not coming up to that? Is that why is it not possible?
Yeah, both. Both, because they required purity. Because they don't have the required purity. In previous times, it is not an unbona fide process. But in its practical application in this present circumstance is not, especially for a worldwide preaching mission. So, because Bhaktisiddhanta's vision was worldwide preaching. So, for worldwide preaching mission. But as we will read, everything comes through the holy name. And that's our process. Yeah. Everything that comes from a so-called, say, a bona fide Siddha Pranali, if someone has the requisite purity, the guru is qualified and the disciple is qualified to receive such a thing. All that they receive is received through the chanting of the holy name. Yeah. And that's what we'll be hearing now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why this morning in Prabhupada's class, I think they said, Prabhupada says, chanting, no, what does he say? Happy, Krishna conscious, like being happy, it's just by chanting. And it's first time I realized that when you're chanting, then you asking for services. And as you engage in the services, you get purified.
Yeah. Although the realizations that one comes to in the process of Nam Bhajan, then one will get direction and blessings from the Guru. For instance, if they're into specific meditations while one is chanting, based on the revelation of the holy name and their purity. So that's there as well.
Chant can be happy.
So even Murli Prabhu, it just opens the door for us as we chant very attentively, isn't it? So
yes, that's
the key of
basically it.
everything, isn't it? That's the key of.
Yeah, that's basically in essence what we're going to read today. I'm just going to explain that now. All right. So I think Suniti Priya, I saw you had your hand up there.
Yes. So do I start actually in the age of Kali?
Yeah, we would just
Where do you want me to start? Yeah.
Yes, start there.
Okay, thank you. In the age of Kali, have we done our prayers? I just remember.
Did we? We did, yeah.
Sorry. Intelligent person performs congregation chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confident companions. While this verse may be satisfying to most readers, some may require further elaboration. We shall offer the same based on the overall context present in the verse preceding the following it. The readers well recall that this verse is spoken by Kahabanjan Rishi, the response of Maharaj Nimi's inquiries, which includes Kena Vidhina Pujayat.
Yeah.
By what process is the Lord worshipped? The answer is given: congregation chanting of the Lord's names. But one may doubt whether this process of worship includes the very confident sadhanas that results the Vrajabhava. In the subsequent verse, the sage continues to address such a doubt by saying Yatra Sankirtana Mava Sarva Samato Vilhavyatta. All perfection of life can easily be achieved by the performance of Sankirtana. We may note here that all perfection, Sarva Sava Artha, can be attained by chanting the holy name. The singular word all must certainly include all and any perfection a worshipper may desire. Moreover, these verses are in 11th canto, whereas Srimad Bhagavatam has already described perfection of Vidha Bhakti, Raguna Bhakti, Vraja Bhakti, and Gopi Bhav. Thus, there can be a little doubt that all perfection includes every perfection narrated. To reframe that all perfection includes the highest perfection, Karabhajan then concludes his train of thought. Indeed, there is no higher possible gain for embodied souls forced to wander throughout the material world than the Supreme Lord Sankirtan movement, by which one can attain the supreme peace and free oneself from the circle of repeated birth and death.
Okay, we follow that. It's quite straightforward and interesting. And we're all familiar with this verse. Krishna Varam, Tasuk Krishnam, Sangopanga Ashadam. But in regards to our Pacific discussion, this particular verse and the translation, Maharaj really, he picks out this word, which is, well, he did the following verse, actually. After this verse, Krishna Vanam Tasuk Krishnam, I was looking at that verse today, actually. Yatra Sankatana, yeah. All perfection can be achieved. So this word all, then Marge elaborates on that. In all the details of attaining one's spiritual position. Someone needs to mute there. Let me go on the muting campaign. 1 second. Mute. Okay. I think. It's gone quiet. Okay, so just want to bring that out. That word Marge is using. All perfection can be achieved. Yeah. Yatra Sankatana Swapato Bilapyate. That's the following verse from Krishna Vanam Tasuk Krishnam. All right, everyone's on board. We're all going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, you can carry on, Suniti Priya.
Is it indeed there is no longer possible? That's where I was, I think. Am I right?
I think so. Yeah, go ahead.
Gain for embodied soul forced to wander throughout the material world, than the Supreme Lord Sankirtan movement, by which one can attain the supreme peace and free oneself from the circle of repeated birth and death. With the echo of the phrase Nahi Atha Parama Lobho, indeed there is no higher possible gain. Is there any room left to doubt that nama-sankirtana can fulfill any perfection desired by any sadhana? For the reasonable devotee, the answer will be there is no doubt that nama-sankirtana offers every perfection, and yet some so-called seekers or sadhikas want something that outwardly appears more esoteric or mystical. Mystical, thank you.
Yeah.
These devotees are impatient, yeah, having heard of subject matters that they should not have heard and which they do not understand. They want to enter the real realm of bhajan, which they have no eligibility. If such devotees actually embark of this premature sadhana, they also inherit the honorific title of Sahaja, a person who takes things cheaply. Srila Prabhupada would say Sahaj means person who takes things very easily. To take things very easily means to want something without paying the actual price for it, like buying a diamond and lose change. But principle of bhakti, indeed of life, is seva dihkarya nishta, that one has the right so that which one has qualification. In Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur words, first deserve, then desire. Unfortunately, some obstinate neuropathy controvert this law of devotion, and of course, there are charlatan who are ready to pamper their illusion,
The illusions, yeah.
promises of Ekadas Bhava, Astak, Kalya, Leela, Samran, Sarvapu, Siddha, and Manjari Bhava. The result is potpourri of Sahajaya, cheater, and Sahajaya, cheated. Thakur Bhakti Vinoda gave us a list of 13 varieties of such divine practitioners.
Practices.
Alua, Bahua, Pratabhav, Nida, Darvasa, Sani, Sahajaya, Sakhadiki, Samarata, Jata, Gosani, Ativadi, Kyuta, Hari, and Goranga.
Nagri. Okay, thank you, Bob. And you can remember that when we had on the Sudha Bhakti Chintamani classes, we had a little deviation
showed
into that.
Yes.
Yeah, there's
Also
one.
nectar of devotion.
Sorry?
Also, it's in the nectar of devotion.
Yeah, nectar devotion. Rupa Goswami speaks very strongly against persons imitating ecstatic symptoms or advanced stages of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And interesting, Rupa Goswami himself, although in his time, there was devotees qualified and engaged in this Siddhapanali meditation. But in his nectar of devotion, he gives the process which we follow, which is from Shraddha, going from Shraddha, to Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, etc. Yeah. So any questions on this? We're all clear what Maharaj meant by esoteric or mystical. This is might be the Astakaliya Smaranam, which an unqualified person may intent or meditate upon, although they still have many, many material desires, etc. So in other words, all perfection can be achieved with the chanting of the holy name. Yeah. Any questions on that or comments?
Yeah, the one it says, Bhakti indeed of life is seva seva, which is very true. And you can right at the bottom, 522 page.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So this means Maharaj often quotes this verse, Sri Sri Dikada Yamnishta. So the particular sadhana that you practice depends on your qualification, on your specific adhikar, on your purity of heart, etc. All right. So we have a few hand. Chandravali, you'd like to read? As previously mentioned.
As previously mentioned, the original process of smarana and other confidential perfections, such as Ekadas Bhav or Manjari Bhav, are not unauthentic or foreign to Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Indeed, these practices were first introduced and practiced by Gaudiya Acharya. The earliest cited verses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are evidence of this. Furthermore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conversation with Ramananda Roy indicates that Siddha Dehi Smaran are adopting Gopi Bhav were practices predating even Rupa Goswami's composition. For example, in his conversation with the Lord, Ramananda Rai said, therefore, one should accept the mood of gopis in their service. In such a transcendental mood, one should always think of the pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna. After thinking of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes for a long time, and after getting completely free from material contamination, one is transferred to the spiritual world. There, the devotee attends an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna as one of the gopis. Unless one follows in the footsteps of the gopis, he cannot attend the service of lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. If one is overcome by knowledge of the Lord's opulence, he cannot attend the Lord's lotus feet, even though he is engaged in the devotional service.
Yeah,
In his
just a point here. Do you remember also when we was reading Harinam Chintamani, at the end there, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this Siddhapanali process of smaran, of meditation. At the end, that is the Harinam Chintamani. At the end, it gives this process which Maharaj is mentioning here. Yeah, as a particular sadhan.
okay.
Okay, continue.
In his purport to the above verse, Srila Prabhupada does not hide Gaudiya Vaishnava support for the Sambandha and Prayojana of Raj Bhakti and the means of its attainment. One can worship Lakshmi Narayan by the process of Vedic Marg, worshipping the Lord with regulative principles according to the instruction of the Shastras and the spiritual master. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radha Krishna, cannot be directly worshipped by this process. The dealings between Radha and Krishna and the gopis are devoid of the opulence of Lakshmi Narayan. The process of Vedic Marg, following the regulative principle, is utilized in the worship of Lakshmi Narayan, whereas the process of spontaneous service, following in the footsteps of the gopis, who are the denizens of Vrindavan, is transcendently more advanced and is the process whereby Radha and Krishna are worshipped. One cannot attain this elevated position while worshipping the Lord in his opulence. Those attracted by the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna must follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Only then is it possible to enter into the Lord's service in Goloka Vrindavan and directly associate with Radha and Krishna.
Okay, we follow that. So what we're hearing about this process of Siddhapanali, or meditation upon Radha and Krishna and their pastimes, we do not neglect that, or we do not, that is part of our process as well. That's our process of perfection. Yeah, he says here, we support this Sambandha and the Prayojan. So the Sambandha is the application. What was it? The first one is?
Sambandha is the first one.
Yeah, Sambandha is the first one. Abhidaya is the second one. Yeah. So Sambandha means a relationship. So to understand the tattva, to understand the philosophy, to understand our goal as Gaudiya Vaishnavas is Radha Krishna worship. And the Prayojan is to enter into that realm. Yeah. Now the Abhidaya, this is the point which is of significance here. The application of it. We follow? Yeah?
Yeah, process, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can continue. 524 at the bottom.
What is at the heart of contention for the followers of Saraswati Thakur is the Abhidaya, by which Raj Bhakti is made available to people today through the worldwide preaching mission. What may have been practiced or even commonplace in the past cannot automatically be transplanted to the 21st century. The blind implementation of spiritual practice is against the very spirit of Vedic injunction, which serve to offer an authorized process of purification that is most applicable to the people of a specific time, place, and circumstance. 4.8, the core religious principle changes from meditation Satyuga to Sankirtan in Kali Yuga. What works for everyone in the Golden Age works for no one in the Iron Age. In Kali Yuga, people do not have the life duration, peaceful environment, or sattvic nature required for successful meditation. The process for self-realization has changed from a regime of silence and inactivity to one of music and dance, and yet the outcome of both remains the same. Similarly, with each age, and perhaps even within the division of ages, circumstances may change in ways that require adjustment to the details of the abhidheya, enabling liberation. Making such adjustment is the duty and the right of an acharya. This was the example shown our parampara by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kaviraj Goswami writes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to deliver all the fallen souls. Therefore, he devised many methods to liberate them from the clutches of Maya. 500 years ago, most sadhakas of India may have been pious enough and cultured enough to adopt Raganuga sadhana and Leela smarana. Today, Indians have lost those assets, and so, like the rest of the world, they are encouraged to engage in Vaidhi sadhana and nama-sankirtana. However, when performed systematically and purely, the result of these two practices is the same as that of Raganuga sadhana and Leela smarana. They lead to mature bhav in the wake of a Vrajvasi. Vaidhi manifests spontaneous devotion in sadhana, and Nam Sankirtan does so in bhav. What must be common to both is proper knowledge of sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojana, and diligent fidelity to sadhana. Should there be a lack in those, then practitioner cannot expect their desired sadhya. And that is the core message of this book. A devotee must be acknowledgeable in and attentive to the science of sadhana and the conscientious.
Conscientious.
Sankalpa. He has to make to cultivate sadhana to its perfection. If a devotee is flying blind and does not know where he is going, a best case scenario is he ends up in one of the Vaikuntha planets. Oh no. Having emphasized the practice of educated Vaidhi sadhana for most devotees, this book must also bring to the reader's attention that Raganuga sadhana cannot be outlawed in ISKCON. If spontaneity arises in a devotee's heart, it must be embraced as good fortune and not exercised as heresy.
Heresy. That means blasphemy.
Yeah. As long as sadhana corresponds to qualification, spontaneous devotion may be accepted as the natural outcome of past piety, good practice, and serious study. Those who are not inspired in the spontaneous way should nonetheless be acknowledgeable in and respectful of the existence of such a spiritual reality. Moreover, devotees of both persuasions should hear from Srila Prabhupada's books, for his divine grace, his writing are replete with teaching and pastime meant to awaken in devotees an eagerness for Raj Bhakti as at some point in their journey to Krishna. In the section above, we have attempted to warn the reader that smarana-dasa is not a matter of immature speculation. The stage of acceptance is for learned devotees who have reached the stage of nishtha or ruchi and come to a conclusion on how they would like to serve Krishna eternally. The majority Vaidhi bhaktas will embrace their service with a sense of reverence, while the rarer Raganuga bhaktas with a sense of intimacy. In either case, those devotees will be qualified to enter the stage of smarana, the keenly attentive chanting of Krishna's holy names.
Okay. Any questions or comments or clarifications or reflections? The essence of this we've covered a few times. One thing I will say is that this specific point of time, place, and circumstance, it causes, without this understanding of, in other words, suitable religious practices for specific circumstances. For instance, Christianity is heavily criticized by the atheistic type person for the outdated and for them the barbaric requirements or practices that's found in the Bible. For instance, within the Quran, there's specific, like for example, within the Bible, there is descriptions of if someone thieves or someone steals something, then they should have their hand cut off. Or if a woman is adulterous, then she should be stoned to death. So often, I mean, I will get to the, just a bit of a deviation here, but this was, I was thinking of this the other day. Right, and we've got such, if you read a book called the Manu-Samhita, and then there's some quite horrifying and scary things that are mentioned there, you know, much along the lines of the accusations against Islam and Christianity. But anyway, the main point I'm making is time, place, and circumstance. So in applying the teachings of perfection, especially of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in time, place, and circumstance, that has to be taken into consideration. And the adjustment is made by the acharyas. It cannot be done whimsically. Like for another example, is Srila Prabhupada, well, generally, Gaudiya Vaishnavas did, and Bhakti Siddhanta would generally instruct devotees to chant 64 rounds, or otherwise engage in preaching all day. But Prabhupada made an adjustment according to time, place, and circumstance and gave 16 rounds. And Krishna then empowered that practice to achieve perfection. He empowered that following of Prabhupada's Prabhupada's adjustment. If you follow that adjustment, chanted 16 rounds minimum, then one can achieve perfection. You know, went off the path a little bit, but I just wanted to bring that out about the importance of time, place, and circumstance. Any other questions, comments here? Okay. Yeah, Marge mentioned about, he's speaking about here being Raghunuga. This mentioned in the beginning of the book as well, I think, of Raghunuga's son being looked at, or spontaneous devotional service being looked at as heresy. So it's been a bit of a discussion because in the history of ISKCON, especially there was one specific other Gaudiya organization which were professing the path of Raghunuga Bhakti. And they would preach that ISKCON is just for Vaidhi Bhaktas. And when you make advancement, you can come to us and we'll teach you Raghunuga Bhakti. Yeah. That's, I mean, some of you may have heard of that. I won't mention names, but one particular, he's since passed away, one particular Vaishnava. So within ISKCON, from that, because devotees were leaving ISKCON, as Maharaj said earlier as well, to the so-called mystical, esoteric practice, which they saw as Raghunuga Bhakti, and something which apparently was not available in ISKCON. Then the pendulum went the other way within ISKCON, where any talk of Raghunuga Bhakti was frowned upon as being a deviation. You can understand how it happened? Where devotees were immaturely trying to protect ISKCON. Yeah, so if anyone did start to write or to speak especially in public, about Raganuga Bhakti, they was treading on thin ice because they may get labeled as being a follower of this other mat. You can understand the history. So Maharaj is what he's saying here, because he's been a spiritual master in ISKCON throughout the whole of ISKCON's time. So he's seen all these moods. So he says here, if spontaneity arises in a devotee's heart, it must be embraced as good fortune and not exercised as heresy, not exercised as a deviation. Yeah. As long as sadhana corresponds to qualification, spontaneous devotion may be accepted as the natural outcome of our practice of Vaidhi Bhakti. And then Maharaj speaks, is it in this book? I think he speaks in quite a few places, but that cultivation or spontaneity and Raganuga sadhana, that will be a private thing. Yeah. As Maharaj is often making this point. Yeah, the public presentation of Krishna consciousness is the same as what it is, as the same as what Prabhupada did. He presented it as following of Vaidhi. But Prabhupada also gave, yeah. Okay, no problem, Rajkishore has to leave. Prabhupada, if for a deep reading of Prabhupada's books, then there's many instructions about meditation upon Radha and Krishna and the attainment of perfection. It is there for those who who study Prabhupada's books deeply. All right. Is that the context of what Maharaj has written there? Is that a bit more clearer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always keep saying, chanting perfectly will get us there.
Yeah.
Yeah, even like Murli Prabhu doing this book, I think it really helps us to focus more in our chanting. We'll do it, but still it gives us more determination, and that's it. That is the only way we will achieve our bhav, whatever we require.
Yeah, great. And this reading is successful.
Yeah, it is wonderful.
Away with that.
Prabhu, can I a few minutes, a few words?
Please.
I just came back from Lithuania. I went for a couple of days to see my guru, which I haven't seen for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I came to the community where I left 25 years ago.
Okay.
And my observations, I was very, to be honest, in London was spoiled. I'm being serious. Devotees are being spoiled. You know why? Because we have a luxury of association with devotees, reading, advancing, and
here, as in compared to there, you mean, or vice versa?
Yes.
Okay.
In London, we're spoiled. I'm being serious. We have so many groups reading and improving and advancing.
Mm-hmm.
And in Lithuania, when they're nice, they devote is perfect, but they stagnate in the same level what I left 25 years ago. The class was given by all devotees. He's even actually senior. He's one of the first devotees. But what I was missing, I was thinking it's going to be lecture to drop dead, But I found that there is missing because it's the same level like 30 years ago. And I realized, I asked them, I said, don't you have? No, they don't have reading groups. They don't read what we do. They don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I left girls where I said, girls, you have to sit and read, because if you don't read at least half an hour minimum, because if you work till late night, okay, half before sleep. But the best thing is for 1 hour, because Prabhupada said you read at least 1 hour.
Yes.
You cannot advance. Your level is the same. Just service is not enough. Japa is not enough. It's not enough to do to advance mentally, spiritually, especially if you have second initiation. It's a must. Reading, it's a must, because Brahman, you cannot preach it if you don't know fear, if you don't know philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's embarrassment.
Very good. So you can share. That's one of the good things that came out from COVID. If there was anything that came out of it, is the formation. Even it was there before, but especially now, the formation of different reading groups. Yeah. So you can share your enthusiasm.
We must read.
Encourage them to get together and read.
Yeah, we have to appreciate what we have, reading groups, because people somewhere it's stagnant. It's stagnant. It's very strange. I came very sad. I came very sad, to be honest,
Yeah, perhaps
because
you
they don't have books in English. They don't understand in
I
English,
see,
and
yeah.
they don't have they don't understand Russian either. So and nobody write books in Lithuania. Nobody translates. It's just few millions people. So nobody does. So they don't have it. So it's very hard.
No, thank you for reminding us of what we do have here.
Yeah, we're
Hare
spoiled. We should
Krishna.
cherish what we
Don't
have.
take it for granted.
Hare
Just be
Krishna.
thankful.
Murli Manohara
Hare
Prabhu
Krishna.
ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Can I say something too? Quick. I just pop
Okay.
in. Sorry, I'm very late. But we need to
problem.
understand that Srila Prabhupada give us a recipe. It's like a soup. If you don't put all the ingredients in the soup, it might work, but it's not going to work the same. So reading and chanting and everything is like the recipe. If you don't follow it, you get the taste, but you're not going to advance so much if you don't read and chant and do service. You're not going to get too far away, I think.
Yeah.
My opinion.
I mean, there can be exceptional cases of being blessed by Krishna's mercy, but generally devotees in general should make use of everything that Prabhupada gave us, which is the whole science of Krishna consciousness. Yes. Thank you, Mother Mongo, for that. Let's just check the time. Let me have a read. Can't see any hands up there, so I'm going to jump in and read. Hope you don't mind. Bottom of page 526. So thank you for those comments. Very encouraging. Yep, we have reviewed both Shravan-das and Varana-das as the first two steps of devotional service leading to smarana-das, the stage of remembrance. To have a well-rounded picture of how a devotee cultivates remembrance to the stage where it is his reality, the following pages outline 7 characteristics of smaran. Yeah, this is very interesting. It's only perhaps next week. Perhaps I'll write something up on the flip chart so we can on the whiteboard so we can see this next week. But here, now we're going into the stage, it seems, of smarana-das. Okay, so these different stages. Let me bring it up for my interest as well. Shravan-das, Varana-das. Now we're doing smarana-das, and smarana-das in itself has different stages. Yeah, so these are remembrance facilitated by and through nama-sankirtana. The principles of smaran, how remembrance is cultivated. We're going to discuss the 5 stages of cultivation, the mood of cultivation, which is vipalamba, separation, the bestowal of divine grace and ultimate perfection. Yeah, this actually, what that paragraph describes the whole rest of the book, actually. For my own interest, I was reading a few chapters ahead. So the chapters ahead describe about grace, about obtaining mercy. This current part of the book, part 6, will describe the first 4 of these characteristics. Part 7, the mood of cultivation, and part 8, the last 2. In this way, Sankalpa-Kaumudi is complete. The way in which Nam Bhajan guides a practitioner to bhava is described by Krishna in the following way. Now, I'm just going to go to the index. I'm going to read the titles, because actually we're past halfway in a reading of this book, actually. Now, part 6 is, we discussed the first, so part 7 is the Sankalpa for Bhava Seva, Garanga and Vipalamba Seva, cultivating separation, the perfection of separation. Then part 8 is the Sankalpas corresponding to grace, the truth of grace, Krishna's grace descends through Vaishnavas and attaining Krishna's grace. So that's what Maharaj was referring to in that paragraph. Okay, let's continue. The way in which Nam-bhajan guides a practitioner to bhava is described by Krishna in the following verse. I'll just read the translation. When a diseased eye is treated with medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. Unquote. How much attention a devotee gives to chanting the names of Krishna is the degree to which his consciousness becomes pure and his perception of transcendental reality clear. This was also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya with the words Jaito, Darpanam, Marjanam. In our presentation of smarana-dasa, we shall follow the outline of Bhaktivinoda Thakur as found in Jaivi Dharma and Harinam Chintamani. However, those books concentrate on Raganuga sadhakas, whereas this book addresses both the regulated and the spontaneous practitioners, the latter being in the minority. While devotees will practice attentiveness from the very beginning stages of bhakti, real smaran will be effective at the stage of firm steadiness. A practitioner should be qualified by dint of his service and surrender, and more or less freed from past bad habits. This is a reliable standard for both regulated and spontaneous devotees. The English word remembrance does not fully capture the meaning of smaran. Generally, it is used to indicate awareness of someone or something from the past. But smaran is very much about a happening in the present. Okay, interesting point. Remembrance, ultimately you think of something you remember in the past. But remembrance specifically in relation to our practice is what you're remembering while you're engaged in shravan. Yeah, what are you thinking about while you're engaged in kirtan in front of the deities? Yeah, what are you thinking about while you're engaged in chanting the holy name? Hopefully it's at least, it should be Krishna, his holy name. Yeah, so this is our practice. This is what remembrance means to us. It's very much about happening in the present. It is about being absorbed in an activity, primarily chanting or hearing. Indeed, part of attentiveness is not to be distracted by the past, of course. In another way, remembrance can be used to recall whom we have long forgotten, Krishna. However, that is a secondary usage. The word smarana has smri as its verbal root, which means to remember, to recollect, or to bear in mind. The suffix ana transforms it to a noun, meaning remembrance, in a way that the root kit is transformed into kirtan or shru to shravana. In terms of nam-bhajan, the concept of bearing in mind suits the import of smaran well. Srila Prabhupada even translated it as memorizing, which means to embed something within the mind, highly suitable. For Gaudiya Vaishnavas at the stage of smarana-dasa, remembrance is when the mind becomes the instrument with which and in which Krishna's attributes are minutely studied. Krishna gives this idea as a general definition. Quote, the actual yoga system as taught by my devotees headed by Sanat Kumar is simply this. Having withdrawn the mind from all other objects, one should directly and appropriately absorb it in me. Okay, any questions on this? So smarana-dasa, it's the instrument by which Krishna's attributes are minutely studied, are minutely studied. So his qualities, his pastimes, etc. Name, form, qualities, and pastimes. This smarana-dasa is the instrument by which we actually come in contact with Krishna. His name, his form, his qualities, and pastimes. Yeah. Such Such absorption enables a practitioner to approach his desired goal of ecstatic devotion. Indeed, it is said that Krishna gives himself to the devotee who remembers his lotus feet. Obviously, such benefit means that Krishna will give any lesser attainment, that Krishna will also give any lesser attainment, and that includes unlimited opulence and even liberation. Pure devotees, however, have no interest in such things. They only want Krishna. And while remembrance may entail scrutinizing study of and deliberation on scripture or absorption in the formal pastimes of the Lord, Jiva Goswami emphasizes that the best and indisputable way to practice smaran is immersion in Krishna's holy names. Progressive stages of smaran require mature and educated determinations, the principles of which have been described in earlier chapters. We refer again to our role model, Gopal Kumar, who progressed to his objective by repeated absorption in his Diksha mantra, which was comprised of the names of the Lord. Remembrance in and remembrance with nama-sankirtana, excuse me, is, in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, the doubtless and fearless way of success for all. The following two sections will now explore the preeminence of nama-sankirtana in the stage of smarana-dasa. Any questions or comments? Oh, it's just nice to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Let's read a couple more paragraphs. I'm losing my voice a bit. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to make known the glories of chanting Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. He summarized those truths in his own Shishastaka and instructed his followers to elaborate on it more fully. In pursuance of those teachings, a devotee is introduced to chanting from the very beginning of his spiritual life, and he continues to do so through the stages of devotion: Shravana, Varana, Smarana, Apana, and Sampatti. And while the mantra remains the same, the quality and depth of chanting, one measure of which is attentiveness, matures. Okay, let's read that again. And while the mantra remains the same, the quality and depth of chanting, one measure of which is attentiveness, matures. So we should be experiencing a difference in the quality of our chanting when we first began chanting, and after a few years in our chanting now. Ideally, there should be a marked difference. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
2 minutes left. Let's make the most of 2 minutes. Okay. I got excited. I was reading that and then skipped the page.
During the stages.
Which page we're on? Which page number?
129. During the stages.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. In the bhakti. Oh, yeah. During the stages of sadhana, chanting is meant to awaken bhava. However, at apana-dasa, the chanting is a result of both effort and ecstasy. Okay. In other words, you chant because you're in ecstasy. You're not chanting to obtain ecstasy. You're chanting because you're in ecstasy. You understand the difference? We are chanting to become absorbed and to become absorbed in ecstasy of love of Krishna. But this stage of apana-dasa, which is application, then your chanting is symptomatic of your
Effort.
yeah. And when perfection, sampatti is attained, sankirtana is the effect of an ever increasing and constantly overpouring love. In Bhakti Sandhava, Jiva Goswami shines a spotlight on nama-sankirtana as a source of empowerment for all forms of devotion, including smarana. I'll just read this last part here. The Acharya writes, just read the translation. If one performs any type of bhakti in Kali Yuga, it should be accompanied by kirtan. While chanting the holy names is equally potent in every age, in Kali Yuga, it has been given special significance by the Lord himself, in that it must accompany all other limbs of bhakti. Returning to our earlier reference of Karana Bhajan Rishi's responses to Majnimi, the words prayer in the phrase Yagne Sankirtan Prayer indicates that even when other services are being offered to the Lord, they must be accompanied by Sankirtan, thus chanting enables and empowers Smaran. A very important point should now be made, but for that important point, you're going to have to wait till next week. Hare Krishna. Okay, next Monday, you're going to hear about a very important point. Those who have the book can look forward and see what it is. Okay, thank you, everyone. Any closing comments or questions? If not, we can finish here.
Thank you, Prabhu. The only comment and asking, never leave us, please, Prabhu. Never ever leave us. Please, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Muli Prabhu. His
Okay, thanks,
grace be
everyone.
Prabhu ji.
Holy Prabhu ki jai.
Jai, Jai.
For Bhagavad Gita tomorrow. Vanchakapatrubhascha kripasanavivaccha parinam bhakti
Namo Vaishnave Namo Namaha.
Hari bol.